Christians watch. A nun, a professor, and a TV writer discuss television from a Christian perspective. Today's discussion: Too Hot to Handle, Kim's Convenience, and then 3 recommendations. So let's ask the question:
should Christians watch?
So Too Hot to Handle is a show that's on Netflix, and the week that it premiered, it became the #1 most watched show on the streaming service. It's a dating show, reality show with a twist. 10 really young, good-looking people come to a resort, and the first day they're told they can't have sex with each other. And they get a certain amount of money the longer they go without having sex. They're there for something like 24 days, and they go through different sort of experiences, learn about each other, get to the end, and decide who they're going to be in a relationship with or not, and talk about the challenges that they went through throughout the series. This show is prurient and it's sort of softcore pornography. In the end, it gets these characters to a point where they're basically saying, I want deeper relationships. One of the women actually says, I'm going to become the Mother Teresa of my group and be preaching abstinence and be preaching whole relationships. And the end is it becomes the kind of show that promotes goodness.
The fact that people are so drawn to watch this happen, watch it unfold, really suggests that we need to do some deep digging in terms of what sexuality means, what it means to be in relationship, and what really a meaningful relationship means in today's society.
Look, I don't think there's any value in Christians watching this show because it's just for titillation. But non-Christians should watch it. Christians should tell their non-Christian hookup culture friends to watch this show because it will make them less hookup culture-ish having watched it.
I don't know if it's just non-Christians who are involved in the hookup culture. Everybody is, Christians, Catholic, all the, Protestants, Catholics, everybody. True. It's very interesting because the creators of the show want them to get to a deeper maturity as human beings, and yet are they willing to do that? That's the interesting part.
My sense is the producers just thought, there's no way these people are going to be able to do this. Wouldn't it be fun to watch them? I wrote a book that came out last year called Breaking the Marriage Idols. In it, I say that Christians actually have a vision of marriage and romance that is really just an appropriation of the broader cultural sense of romance and sex and marriage that we really pick up from reality TV. This sort of media is actually the sex therapist and premarital counselor for most people. And so their visions of what a good marriage, a good relationship, what romance is, are really shaped by TV shows like this, more so than anything else.
By the way, throughout the show, they actually are doing kind of meaningful things. They have these like sessions that are almost like therapy sessions and small group sessions where they reveal things about themselves. They have these moments where they're supposed to try to connect emotionally, learn things about themselves, learn things about each other. So they're almost walked through almost a couples retreat for the entire life of the series.
It almost sounds like the movie The Dating Project, but I think it starts with a philosophical premise of hedonism. Basically, they're all living very actively sexual lives, and yet a movie like The Dating Project is really starting from a different premise of Christian humanism, of seeing the dignity of every human person, and that a person's not just their body to be used, but that each person, that there's a sacredness to relationships, a sacredness to the human body.
Yeah, but wait, I don't think it had a philosophical premise. I think it inadvertently creates its own philosophical premise. And I don't even like using words like philosophical premises. Those are words that nuns and professors should use. But in the end, it becomes to me this valuable thing that actually preaches a lesson inadvertently.
I hate to agree with you, Dean, but I'm about to. I think the producers unknowingly give into, like I was saying, they want to see what happens. And I think that's why most people go and watch it, just like you're saying. It leverages our desires. And yet, just as you're saying, at the end, it exposes the impoverishment of that, right? It exposes the fact that actually, no, you can't get there purely on sort of titillation alone. Relationship is something that's meaningful and deeper than sex.
Well, I think it says something about the hookup culture, basically that it's not fulfilling. It doesn't build a person up. It doesn't mature somebody. It keeps them infantile, really, a slave to their passions. And that's the hedonism that's present.
But isn't that so interesting that Dean is saying, and I think he's right, that at the end you get this interesting reflection on the value of relationship from a really unexpected source, like Too Hot to Handle. Kim's Convenience is a sitcom that is currently airing on Canadian broadcast television, and past seasons can be watched on Netflix. It tells the story of the Kim family, who is a first and second generation immigrant family from Korea who has set up a convenience store in Canada. One of the reasons I really love Kim's Convenience is because it offers a fun, quirky, really lighthearted take on all the things that families deal with, but also the ways that families might interact in a incredibly plural world where lots of people from lots of different walks of life kind of find themselves in the same space, in this case, in Kim's Convenience. But it's also really interesting because the Kims are explicitly Christians, and so the show offers a really great take on what it means to be a Christian family, what it means to be a Christian family in a plural society. And it's sort of embodied, I think, in the thumping of the forehead segment in the show, where Mr. Kim, disciplines his children by thumping them on the forehead. And he does this to a child who is just out of control in his store that his mom won't, discipline him.
This is not a playground. No running in the store.
We don't use the N-word.
I not use the N-word.
Oh, the other N-word. No? Yes, Oliver, you can move your body, but why don't you show us how you can hop like a bunny instead?
No. Stop doing like that. Yeah. Stop doing like that. Yeah.
Negative. You must apologize immediately.
Obviously crosses the line, but what this episode brings up are all of these differences that we encounter every day, and the challenge is knowing what sense are certain things cultural differences, and at what point are these things actually, as a society, we're saying no to, right? And that's a really hard thing to manage and to navigate when we have this plural world that we're all inhabiting. How much do I allow you to be fully you? And how much do I say sometimes when you're fully you, that's crossing a line? That's a really interesting conversation that I think the show brings up in a kind of winsome and fun way.
When I was running a show up in Canada, I actually had dinner with the creator of the show. His name is Ins Choi, and he is an actor who was also a seminary student in Toronto, and he wasn't getting the kinds of roles that he wanted, so he wrote a one-man play for himself to appear in called Kim's Convenience, about his life as part of his family running a store. That show was seen, got picked up, turned into a series. Eventually, it became the #1 sitcom in Canada, actually. And then about 2 years into its run, it got picked up by Netflix. Ins is this deeply thoughtful guy, thinks deeply about God, hadn't really put together the fact that he was being countercultural by putting Christian characters on television.
So as Cutter said, it's a Christian family, and even though it's somewhat superficially represented, there is some depth to it on how they live it. Mr. Kim talks about, he's an immigrant himself and sometimes faces racism himself, but he also comes to a realization of his own underlying prejudices. And so it's a very interesting way that the writers get to his own lived experience, and something that we all have, our own prejudices. And I think it's a sense to go deeper in making their faith lived.
I want to recommend the TV show St. Elsewhere, which aired on NBC from 1982 to 1987. It's now available on Hulu. It's a great show. In TV writers' rooms, a lot of writers say The Simpsons already did that because every comedy has already been done on The Simpsons. Every medical show, St. Elsewhere already did it. It was one of the first to do these layered stories with deep characters. And I specifically want to talk about season 6, in which one of the most despicable characters becomes a Christian. And I mean says, I want to accept Christ as my personal savior kind of Christian. It's because there was a Christian writer in the room that story happened. I really recommend it on Hulu, St. Elsewhere.
My recommendation is the NBC series called Making, which stars Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman, who also star in Parks and Rec, my recommendation last time. So, 6 degrees of Amy Poehler. Making it's a reality TV show, but what I love about it is that it's really encouraging and constructive, which is really different than most reality TV shows out there. So Poehler and Offerman are encouraging, they're uplifting, they're life-giving to all of the creatives that come together and really just make a bunch of craft projects. So if you're crafty, if you like to celebrate craftiness, and you want to watch a fun show with your family, then I recommend Making It.
I'd like to recommend the mini-series on Netflix called Self-Made, The Life of Madam C.J. Walker, the first self-made female millionaire in the United States, an African-American woman who promoted the beauty of Black women and Black hair. The beauty of this woman is that she just simply wanted Black women to have a certain dignity about themselves, but also so that they can run their own businesses and they can be independent women. She also wanted to be a millionaire. She wanted to be like Rockefeller, but she didn't want it just for the money for herself. She wanted it so she can help other people. And she was a great philanthropist all her life, giving a lot of money to charity. This series, even though it's fictionalized, so there's some liberties taken with the true story, which many people may have issues with. However, I would recommend this series because it is really a beautiful story. And this Christian woman, Madam C.J. Walker, who really wanted to better Black women in the United States in the early 1900s.
Join us next time for more.
Should Christians